All right, let's dive right in. We're going to unpack a source that draws a direct line between some serious financial turmoil and escalating military tensions. And, well, it paints a pretty stark picture of how just the idea of a conflict can send shockwaves through the entire global economy. So, the source we're looking at kicks things off with a big question. Why is everybody panicking? It describes a scene where markets, everything from crypto to stocks, are just in an absolute free fall. Investors are spooked, and nobody seems to know which way to turn. To really get a handle on just how bad things are, let's look at the financial fallout that's being described. And I mean, we are not talking about a minor dip here. This is presented as a massive, system-wide event. Get this, the speaker points to $200 billion just gone, wiped out from the crypto markets in a single day. That's a staggering number, and they describe it as nothing short of a total bloodbath for digital currencies. And to really put a face on this chaos, the source uses Bitcoin as a prime example. Its value is shown collapsing from a claimed high of $120,000 all the way down to around $71,000. It's a dramatic nosedive that just perfectly captures the panic. But here's the thing, it's not just crypto. The source is very clear that this is happening everywhere all at once. Stocks, gold, silver, they're all crashing. And that's what's so weird. Usually when things get scary, investors run to gold as a safe haven. But the claim here is that even the safe havens aren't safe. It really creates this feeling that there's just nowhere to hide. So what on earth is causing all this? What's the trigger? Well, the source we're examining posits one single, really powerful explanation. It argues all this chaos can be traced back to one specific geopolitical flashpoint. And here's the absolute kicker. The most crucial point the source makes is that all of this financial mayhem is happening before a single shot has even been fired. The market isn't reacting to a war that's happening, it's reacting to the threat of one. So let's look at that threat. The source then gets into the details of this high-stakes diplomatic battle. It paints a picture where negotiations are completely falling apart, and the threats are getting, well, a lot louder and a lot more direct. And apparently, it all boils down to this one major disagreement. The US is demanding Iran completely scrap its ballistic missile program. But Iran's position is, essentially, no way, that's not up for discussion. And according to the source, that's the deadlock. That's why diplomacy is failing. And as the talks break down, the language gets a lot more intense. The source highlights this direct quote, this warning shot fired from the US straight to Iran's top leadership. It's being interpreted as a very clear signal that a military strike isn't just on the table, it's coming soon. Right, so this isn't just tough talk anymore. We're moving from words to actions. The source describes actual military hardware being moved into position, like pieces on a chessboard, turning all these verbal threats into a very tangible, very dangerous reality. And Iran, for its part, isn't just sitting back and watching. It's showing off its own weapons. The source specifically points to this one, the Khaibar-Shikan missile, a hypersonic weapon that they say has enough range to hit strategic targets all across the Middle East. And they're not being subtle about what those targets are either. The source details this whole list of things Iran claims it can hit. It's not a vague threat, it's a very calculated message. It's designed to show just how much damage they believe they could inflict if they were attacked. The speaker really zeroes in on the focal point of all this tension, a U.S. aircraft carrier. You have to remember, this thing is like a floating military base worth billions of dollars, and it's just sitting there, within range, with missiles now reportedly aimed right at it. Talk about a high-stakes standoff. Okay, so what's the endgame? What happens if someone actually pulls the trigger? Well, the source lays out a really grim forecast. It argues that the financial pain we're seeing now, that's just the appetizer. It outlines this terrifying potential domino effect. See, a military strike wouldn't happen in a vacuum. It could instantly cause oil prices to skyrocket, leading to massive inflation for everybody. To fight that, central banks would be forced to jack up interest rates, but that could grind industry to a halt, triggering an even deeper crash. And that's when you might see people rushing to pull their money out of banks. And this might be the most chilling part of the whole analysis. The source claims that, according to the U.S. establishment's own thinking, the chance of a successful, quick strike is only about 20 to 25%, a 1 in 4 shot. That leaves a huge probability that this thing spirals into a long, devastating, and completely uncontrollable war. So, Ultimately, unpacking all this leaves us with a pretty provocative question. In a world as deeply connected as ours, how far is any financial market from any battlefield? The source we've examined argues that line between a conflict on the other side of the world and your own personal savings might be a lot thinner than any of us think.